So A Quiet Place Day 1 is currently getting a lot of love. I've seen a lot of love and not a lot of criticism about it. I've even seen some say it's the best movie in the franchise out of the 3 movies, which I disagree with, but I will be doing a ranking of the 3 just for fun. Sometime in this video I'll talk about that. And this is one of those reviews where I know I'm going to get comments that are like, you just like to hate things, and I'm not going out of my way to be extra critical by any means, and I'm not going to be dishonest in order to avoid those comments. And before we get started, I want to make clear I'm not hating on this movie at all. I don't hate it. I actually enjoyed this movie. But that doesn't mean I don't have criticisms about it, and I don't love it as much as I've seen people love it. Now, it is the worst rated on Rotten Tomatoes, if that means anything to anyone, out of the 3, so I know I'm not alone here, and I don't think I'm alone in my thoughts about this movie. When New York comes under attack from an alien invasion, a woman and other survivors try to find a way to safety. They soon learn that they must remain absolutely silent as the mysterious creatures are drawn to the slightest sound. I wish that's what the movie was really about, and it wasn't, and I'll get into, you know, why. Maybe I'll do spoilers in this video. I wasn't really planning on it, but I feel like I want to. I don't know. We'll see how I feel towards the end of the video. I will say this is the most misleading movie out of the whole trilogy. I think for me, I needed a few days to like process this movie and how I felt about it, because I was just so taken aback by what actually happened in this movie that it was so unexpected and not really what I want in a Quiet Place movie. And so I was a little caught off guard, and I like didn't know how to respond or react to the movie because I was like, oh, okay. So there are emotional storylines in the other movies, don't get me wrong, more so in the first one. I won't say specifics because if you haven't seen any of the franchise, I don't want to spoil anything. But you know, there's some emotions going on in the first movie especially. However, day 1, about half the movie was spent on like schmaltzy stuff. It was a little bit sappy for half, I think 45 minutes passed, and we didn't see a monster or have any kind of tension at all because they were so focused and like heavy-handed on the emotional storyline. I didn't hate the movie, but like I said, I was like caught off guard with how much they focused on the sappy stuff and the emotional stuff that I was just like, what was that? What was that? Like, why? And I've seen some people really like that aspect, and it's something different for the franchise, and they actually really enjoyed the emotional storyline and like the drama aspect of this. To me, it felt a little soap opera-y at times, you know, really strong, crying, just emotions and melodrama in my opinion. That doesn't mean it can't have emotional stuff going on or sentimental stuff, but like the amount that's what this movie was really about. It really had nothing to do, I can't say it had nothing to do, but it really did not focus on the day 1 of this apocalypse, which is what I signed up for when I'm going to watch an apocalypse movie, especially when it takes place on the first day that it starts happening. Like, I was expecting something more along the lines of Cloverfield, where you see the story from a first-person perspective of what actually happens that day. That movie was fantastic in setting up the apocalypse and actually seeing a bunch of stuff, right? To me, it felt like a secondary sideline storyline going on in the background while we're following the sentimental story, and that's not what I wanted from day 1, you know? Another great example of the beginning of an apocalypse movie that I absolutely love, I think it's one of the most perfect apocalypse movies and one that I regularly rewatch because it has everything that I want from an apocalypse movie, is Greenland. This has emotional stuff going on, especially if you have children, okay? So this is proof that you can have that sappy stuff, you know, have an emotional, dramatic storyline, while also the main focus is the apocalypse, and you make it a part of what's happening in the apocalypse. With her journey in A Quiet Place Day 1 did not feel like the apocalypse even mattered, because she was on a journey, right? She was on a mission, and the apocalypse was just happening in the background. It had nothing really to do with each other. It was just like inconvenient that the apocalypse was happening, you know? And I think that those movies, Cloverfield and Greenland, are proof that you can do emotional stuff in an apocalypse movie while still increasing the tension along the way and like not letting that go. And I just feel like A Quiet Place Day 1 had too many moments where there wasn't any tension. Like you knew a monster was not going to come because they were being silent. And it just kind of felt like the same old formula in all the other Quiet Place movies. And I wanted something more. Like this is the third movie in the franchise. It may be the first movie in the timeline, but it's the third movie. I want something fresh and like something new that we haven't seen before. And I thought we were going to get that. There was a scene in particular where you see a little bit more of like the aliens, creatures eating something. And I was like, oh cool, we're going to see like the mothership or like the mother of all, you know, maybe these, it's like Cloverfield and these are just like the little babies or something. And we didn't get any more reveals. I feel like we got nothing in like adding to the story of the monsters. And it felt like they were just using the same, like it's the same thing we've seen twice now where, oh, you got to be quiet. There's a monster crawling right by you. You better be quiet. Like it's the same thing. It's the same tension. So to me, there wasn't anything new that this movie brought besides a soap opera kind of vibe. And that's not really what I wanted. There were moments definitely where the tension, the horror picked up. And I would say the first half of the movie is where all the horror is really jam-packed in there. The climax to me was pretty lackluster in that tension for me. I will be doing spoilers because I do want to talk more about her character and I don't know if it would be spoiling anything if I talk about that, so I'll save it for spoilers. But there weren't stakes. There were no stakes, you know? Because if you look at the first movie, the stakes in that film were so high. She was pregnant, she had to go into labor and deliver a baby in silence, okay? Stakes pretty dang high. In this one, I didn't feel any tension there. I didn't feel any pressure for survival. You know, the survival instinct was not there. And for me, that just didn't do anything for me. The only thing I did care for survival was the cat, okay? I felt like she was a little bit selfish with that cat dragging it around in the apocalypse. Like, that poor cat. I feel like with each new Quiet Place movie, we get a whole new genre added on to that. You know, they're all at the base a PG-13 horror movie. Horror, you know, arguably whatever. But, you know, they have that baseline of like a horror. And then the first one is more like horror thriller, you know, a little bit more psychological because of the childbirth aspect and like then having a baby in this world where you have to be silent. Like that's impossible, right? And then the second one, we get a little bit more action. I feel like it's horror action because you have a lot more jump scares and you have a lot more characters added into the story where they're, you know, moving locations a lot. So that to me adds a little bit more action. With the third one, we're just that horror drama. It's a horror drama. Thriller drama even, which this all kind of makes sense to me with the like genres changing a little bit because the first two are directed by John Krasinski and I felt like those two felt a little bit more correlated. Like, you know, it was a direct sequel. It made more sense. And then they are also written by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. And with the Quiet Place Day 1, it's written and directed by Michael Sarnowski, who actually also directed Pig, which is like a slow burn drama, psychological drama movie. It stars Nicolas Cage and I actually really enjoyed that one. That was a really good movie, but it's definitely more on the drama side, like I was gonna say thriller, the psychological kind of slow burn. And I could see kind of his style a little bit in Day 1 because there were definitely some slower scenes that completely took all tension away and like any of the tension out of that movie. I don't feel strongly about anything in this movie, like good or bad. I just don't feel passionate about it at all. I'm not obsessed with the franchise to begin with. Like I really had to grow to love the first one. And then the second one was really good. I'll just do my ranking right now. The second one I think is my favorite because I think it has the most stuff going on and it was the most exciting, like the most anticipation and tension and things like that. And I really liked it. And then the first one, and then it'll be Day 1 in last place. But I don't feel strongly about it either way. You know, it's just, I just don't feel strong about it. It was fine. I enjoyed the experience of watching it. You know, there was some tension here and there, but it was just okay for me. Like, it was fine. I just didn't expect that from a Quiet Place movie, and it felt like it was missing something, almost like there were deleted scenes and they like edited stuff out because we didn't really have any flashbacks or callbacks to things. It was just kind of like told to us. It was like explained to us without showing a lot. Also, I felt like a lot of the story was unrealistic with how people would actually react during this event on so many levels. One, they found out real fast that they respond to sound. They had to, because otherwise our main character probably would have died. So they had to announce on their helicopter this response to sound, be quiet, basically. And it's like they figured that out way too fast. I feel like it would have taken like 2 days maybe for the government to like realize. It was like almost instantaneous, right? Maybe a couple hours. The cat, a lot of times with the cat, I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I'm glad they didn't, but I was like, there's just no way. Also, I did not think this man was realistic at all, or their partnership in the movie. I just was not a fan because I was like, you know her for 1 day. And I get that he must be like an emotional guy. He's like a little sentimental, right? But it's like, you are acting like you have known her for 10 years. And I just don't think humanity would be like that in this situation. I know that sounds like I don't have faith in people, but in this scenario especially, I just feel like people are selfish and they will exhibit that, or they'll be nice with boundaries. You know, they'll have their guard up because it's an unknown experience. Also, I can't even say that because it's the end of the movie. I'm gonna get into spoilers for this movie because I have more things I want to talk about, and then I don't have to worry about spoiling anything in the movie. But basically, overall, it was just fine. I think I give it like 3 out of 5. I think that's fair. It's just fine. It was fine. I wasn't excited about this movie in any way. So on to spoilers. If you haven't seen it yet, you know, obviously don't watch the rest of this video. So the last thing that was really unrealistic to me was in the end where the boats were, you know, driving away basically because these creatures can't swim, which we'll get to that criticism in a second because I just remembered that this is ridiculous that they say that they can't swim, which they invented in the second movie. Don't get me wrong. It's not the third one. It's just it's a little inconsistent. So basically the boats are, you know, sailing away, and then she is like telling him to get on the boat. You have to go. She gives him the cat. He jumps off the pier, I guess, into the water with this cat, and the boat stops for them. And I'm like, there is no way that a boat would stop for one person. I'm sorry. Again, humanity in the apocalypse, not gonna happen. Ideally it would, but I just don't think there's a way that if they were already set sail that they would stop the boat for someone. That just wouldn't happen. I don't think they would stop the boat. If it was like officials running the boat, maybe if it was like a random person's boat, and yeah, maybe they would stop. But it was like a huge boat, like a commercial boat with a bunch of people already on it. They want to get those people to safety as quickly as possible. They're not going to stop the boat for one man and a cat. It's just not going to happen. So I just found a lot of the story just really unbelievable. Her lack of survival skills, I understand she's dying of cancer. Okay, I get it. But in reality, I just don't know if she'd be like, well, the apocalypse is going, I'm just gonna go get pizza. I'm gonna go get pizza. And that's the whole storyline. And I just wish that was like a side mission that she just happened upon some pizza and that's where that storyline went. But no, it was the whole arc of the movie was her finding this damn pizza. And it's like, there are bigger things. I get the motivation behind it. Again, they're really pushing that sentimental story of her dad taking her to get pizza when she was little, and so she really wants this pizza before she dies. I get the story, okay? But at the end of the day, that's such low stakes compared to the first and second movie that I just don't care because she has no will to live. And we know she's dying already. So how are we necessarily rooting for her when we know how the movie's probably gonna end, right? I guess we're supposed to be rooting for this man, this strange man that we don't really have a huge backstory on. We get like one little spiel from him in the apartment and that's it. So I just don't feel like there's anyone to really care that deeply about because in the end we know what's going to happen. That doesn't mean that it can't be sad. It was very sad, like it was, you know, an emotional movie, but it felt so disjointed from the apocalypse that's happening outside. Like, it felt weird to me to have all this emotional stuff, and then the tension comes from every now and again a little scare where the monster's really close by, and then they're quiet, and then they escape, and then the monster crawls away and they're fine. You know, like, that's just every once in a while it happens. So for me, it's like, I don't feel the tension. I don't feel the stakes here. Let's talk about the monster being able to swim or not being able to swim, right? So they say it can't swim. Again, they figured that out real quick. And I know what you guys are gonna say when I talk about this next point, but in the first one, when the basement is flooded, right, and her baby is floating in the water and she needs to get her baby, the monster like creeps down into the water and then it disappears, and then it comes up later. So it learned at some point to hold its breath, I guess. I just feel like it's inconsistent because it's an alien. It doesn't have lungs, I imagine. I don't really know. I feel like it doesn't work the same as a human would. So in the first movie, when it can go under the water, it probably wasn't swimming. Although we did see it kind of swimming in day one when they're in the subway tunnel that's flooded. It just suffocates before it can get to them. So at some point during this apocalypse, they have learned to navigate the water a little bit. Maybe not swim long distance, but then in the second one, that's the whole plot point, is like it can't swim. So it's like, can it swim? It kind of can. Like, I feel like maybe that's like really nitpicky, but I feel like you need to explain that a little bit more because it almost feels like a plot hole why it can, you know, function in the water just fine in the first movie, not in the second movie, which is a sequel. And then obviously in the first one, it hasn't figured out how to navigate water yet. So I don't know. It just was kind of strange. I will say the performances from Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn were great with what they were working with. I feel like the characters themselves were a little bit more lackluster, but I did really enjoy their performances nonetheless. Like, I liked their overall performance. But this just definitely was not my favorite Quiet Place movie. Like, hands down, just wasn't it. I get why people enjoy it, and so this is going to be a movie where some are really going to enjoy the emotional storyline and others will be caught off guard like myself and hate it. So I can't say hate. I don't hate it, but I think some people will hate it. I was just like taken aback. I was like, what's going on? Like, it's been like 45 minutes since we've seen a monster. Can we like get back to the apocalypse happening outside, or what are we doing? Or are we doing like magic tricks on the stage and like eating pizza, and like it just dragged on a little bit too long. I don't mind the emotional backstory of her and her dad and everything. I don't hate that. I just wish that was the side story to what is actually happening, and the main mission wasn't just getting pizza, because again, no stakes. There's no stakes. So that's why I was kind of taken out of this movie a little bit. But I would love to hear your thoughts on A Quiet Place Day One if you've seen it. How do you rank the Quiet Place franchise in order? Like, what's your ranking of the 3 movies? Leave a comment down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.